If you are listening to us there, check us out on YouTube. That's basically the best way I can see the metrics of our show. So, if you like it, go there, give us a watch or whatever. Just do what you do on YouTube.
Don't jerk off to us. Well, if you want to, whatever. If that's what you're into and it'll get us views, that's fine.
Welcome to another episode of Tank Talk. This is episode 6. Thank you for following our emotional roller coaster of a season that's been so far. If you made it this far and watched all 6 episodes, you're likely a close personal friend with too much time on your hands or Jeff's mom. So thanks, Jeff's mom. But appreciate you all listening to another episode as we break down what is yet another ugly week for the boys in teal. I'm going to pass it over to the person who's likely going to get us kicked off the show for something he says. Kicked off our own show on all platforms. Jeff, how have you been?
I haven't been great watching these Sharks games. It's been a pretty horrid past, I think, like 8 days. Especially, I don't know, being on the East Coast, I guess, is not where we need to be. And apparently, with the news that just came out, Doug Wilson didn't think so either.
No, he didn't. So, yeah, we have a lot to talk about today. Deboer was literally just fired moments before recording the show. We're going to talk about that. Obviously, we'll break that down immediately. Then we're going to go into a lot of the trends that have been happening over these last 5 games. 5 games since our last episode? Yeah. So, last 5 games, the losses that we've experienced, go through our power play and a lot of the problems we've been having as a Sharks team. If you are watching on YouTube, you can check us out on Spotify, Apple Podcast, all these other things. If you're on one of those other things like Spotify or Apple Podcast, Google Play, check us out on YouTube. With that being said, let's get right into the breaking news of Peter Deboer fired. This is really big news. I just want to hear your initial thoughts, Jeff, on this.
Well, we've been talking about this, kind of broaching the subject, I feel like every week. Like, what's the point that we get to that Deboer? I think we've always brought up Doug Wilson in the same breath because he obviously has quite a bit of responsibility here too. So we've been talking about it for a while, and I'm not feeling positive or negative. I guess the slightest bit of positivity is that at least we realize that something's wrong and we're trying to fix it. I just don't know yet that this is going to fix it. Our interim replacement doesn't inspire a whole lot of confidence. Bob Bugner, who was a Sharks assistant for a while and then went to the Panthers, somehow made them worse, and then came back to the Sharks as an assistant coach. And then he ended up being like the one guy on the coaching staff that wasn't fired about an hour ago. So, I welcome the chance for the new possibilities, but I don't feel super hopeful that there's any big change going to be made.
Yeah. No, this is pretty crazy. It definitely brings a lot of reactions. Initially, like my initial reaction to hearing this was like, what the fuck? Like, this is awesome. Only because if you've watched some of the last episodes that we've had, the Sharks are in a terrible spot, and that's just the sad news and the sad truth of it. I mean, regardless of the record, our contracts, the way that we play, it doesn't look good on front and back end of the Sharks. And so, seeing a big change, like a coaching change in the middle of the season, is pretty crazy. It doesn't happen a lot, although last year there was like this weird time period where it did. And then this year, the coaches that are getting fired are like, it's not specifically for like their hockey play. It's for other personal issues. But yeah, definitely brings like a lot of different emotions. Like, for one, are the Sharks in that desperate of a spot as of right now to do that. Because, you know, when you hear of teams doing that, they're desperate. They're bad teams. Are we considered a bad team in that desperate spot now? Like, do you think that?
I think we have a higher standard, which I think is arrogant, but it's also just a fact. Like, the Sharks have been a perennial playoff team for about 20 years now, which is like 2/3 of our existence. And regardless, we haven't won a Stanley Cup, but I mean, everyone knows the Sharks are even out here on the East Coast. Like, people know that the Sharks are a well-run franchise. They're a team that's constantly competing. They're never, you know, it's not like they're the Kings. You know, they've won 2 cups, but they also dropped to the bottom of the standings the last couple of years, and they, you know, they'll have their ups. And before they had won their cup, they weren't the best team in the NHL. So the Sharks are always there. We're always fighting. And now it's getting to a point where we struggled in the season since Deboer brought us to the Cup, and now it's kind of, I guess, come to a climax where we finally have to be like, okay, this isn't working. It's time to move on.
Yeah, and this seems like a huge desperation mode for Doug Wilson. You know, he's made a lot of great trades. He's made a lot of great moves over the past, but he's also made some iffy contracts. We got a lot of long-term contracts locked up as of right now. So, you know, this is pretty desperation mode. Like, if the Sharks don't make it, when he just signed Erik Karlsson, a big move, lost a lot of guys for that, then, you know, he's making this call right now. And, you know, hopefully it's for the best. I think one of the other things that, you know, is kind of a problem is just the lack of coaches. And this is what happens when you fire a coach in the middle of a season. It's just there's a lack of coaches even available. So you hire an interim head coach, which is Bob Bugner, our assistant coach. And then what? You know, you say he's interim, then you just sit on it for a while because obviously we don't have a lot of options there. So we just wait to see how that pans out. If that doesn't pan out, you know, we hire a potential coach that maybe hasn't done anything in a while. So that's the only, or not the only, but that's one of the concerns I have for this. Although, yeah, we have been a group that have kind of been calling for Deboer's head for a while. And we really broke that down in like our 3rd or 4th episode. The last time the Sharks went on this like a horrendous losing streak, but it's crazy to think something was actually done. I wouldn't say he was. I ever said he was explicitly the problem. I've never been completely anti Deboer. You know, like, get him out of here. He's like a cancer. Like, you know, I wouldn't say that, but I agree. So, just an initial question I have for you is, what changes do you expect coming in? You know, Bob Bugner is coming in. Do you expect a lot of changes? I mean, there have been a lot of problems. Do you expect the team to play differently? Do you think the team's behind this? You know, what are your initial thoughts on like what changes are going to be made?
Well, the thing is, I've been trying to look it up too about Bugner and his time with the Panthers. And I don't know enough about the guy to say whether he's going to make substantial changes as far as, I mean, I think strategically he kind of has to make changes because what we're doing right now isn't working. Him as a person, though, I think an even bigger deal is how he's going to fit with the players. And he does seem, from what I can tell, like he'd be a player's kind of coach. So I think he's going to be liked in the locker room, and I don't think that's going to be any issue. Just what worries me is his actual hockey intelligence. Like, Pete was a smart hockey intelligence guy. I never doubted his ability to like know the game and be confident and present a confident front. But Bugner was a goon in the NHL when I was like 10 years old, I think. So he's not that far removed from playing, and it's not like he was a great player by any stretch. So not that you have to be a great player. The Lightning had I'm totally blunt. John Cooper, who was like an attorney, and he led them to one of their best seasons. So it's not like you don't have to, you know, and your playing career doesn't necessarily say how you're going to be as a
Wayne
coach.
Wayne Gretzky wasn't that great of a coach.
Yeah, exactly. Patrick Waugh wasn't that great of a coach. So I'm not saying that his ability, but I mean, since that's all I have to go off of, plus his 2 shitty years as the Panthers head coach, it's not. I don't feel great.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. I think a lot of things are going to change just simply because, Bob Bugner's running the show now. It's only him. If you look stuff up about Peter DeBoer being fired, so were a lot of his other, call him posse that came with him. Our goalie coach fired. Steve Spots, who was in charge of a lot of our power play and special teams, also gone. And, so the playbook is maybe getting thrown out and maybe something new is coming from this, which honestly, when it comes to the power play, good, because our power play is so bad. Somehow it's still 22nd in the league, but it's garbage. But yeah, it's crazy too. And I've been thinking, like, will this actually happen for a while? And I've kind of been done with Deboer, just simply because, like, if you hear him in the post games, it seems like he gives up. There are multiple post games where it's like, what went wrong? Oh, we're not working hard enough. Okay. What went wrong? Or do you worry about the power play? No, I don't worry about the power play. He said that the game before we went on a 10-game drought on the power play. And like, he's just like, nah, I don't worry about it. Like, he's so
It's like, clearly you don't worry about it.
And yeah, I get it. That's kind of his personality. But like, these are things that, like, I'd like to see as a fan my head coach address. I'd like to see, like, we're doing, at least say, like, we're working on it. We're doing this. We're trying this out, but maybe we're not implementing into a game yet because it's not where we want it to be. Or like, yeah, I don't know. And like, a lot of this literally just happened. We had a whole show plan. So this is going to kind of like mess the show up. Jeff, you were frozen there for a second.
Not mess it. Hey, you know what?
Not mess it up, but it's going to change the outlook on a lot of things we're going to talk about.
Yeah.
But yeah, you want to kind of wrap up. We're going to keep going in more in detail and Deboer getting fired throughout the show, and like some of the reasons that led to his demise, so to say. But yeah, we'll go with that. And then, what are some of your closing thoughts before we get into more of this?
Well, I mean, it's interesting because you just brought up how the other parts of his coaching staff, of the coaching staff, are now gone. So, I mean, they've got to be replaced. So, I'm curious in the coming, what's going to happen with, like, and especially for me, goaltending coach is a pretty big deal. And I mean, in my opinion, I was a goalie, so I'm but also, like, a goaltending coach can make a huge difference. We had I think we had Arturs Urban as our goalie coach a couple of years ago, and he flipped the script on Thomas Greiss when we had him as our, and now Greiss is kicking ass in New York. So again, I don't know how big of a role each of these, like, positional special teams coaches plays, but that's just something to keep an eye on.
Jeff, your camera's super messed up, by the way.
Yeah, but I don't know why it's getting more messed up, but I didn't even touch. Yeah.
But yeah, it definitely, it's kind of good to see that. Oh, there we go. It's good to see that just because we have the worst tandem pair of goalies in the NHL. Like, our number 1 and 2 are like ranked the lowest, and it's good to see a change. How much of, a goalie coach is going to be able to tell Jones, like, you got to stop the 5-hole shots? Like, who knows?
It's a lot of confidence too with Jones.
Yeah. So there is going to be a lot of, I think, a lot of the playbook changing, and long term, I would say this is probably a good decision. You got to switch stuff up when it's working. And, we'll see how the Sharks bounce back after this game. It's interesting because, you look at some teams, and Toronto had this right after Babcock was fired, and they, like, kind of went on a little streak there. And some teams respond well to it, and others, it doesn't work out so well. So that's entirely, we're just going to have to wait and see how the Sharks perform with that. and how they react.
Yeah. Next episode will be a lot easier to go into Bugner and everything that we see from him.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, we'll move on to start to talk about some of the Sharks games. But thank God this road trip is over. The Sharks have a problem on the road. Like, let's just go.
The further away from home they get, just fucking suck.
Let's just go back. Just go back to fucking the Pacific, where we can beat up on the Kings and the Ducks a little more, and then I'm happy. Give us more home games. But like it just seems like these Kings games, or like all the Pacific Division games, where it's like it's a close game or a good game, it's such a distraction from the fact that the East Coast teams are just way ahead of us. And then we go and play them, and it's like, wow, this is brutal. We just lost 7-1 to a Tampa Bay Lightning who's not even playing that well. My fucking God.
Yeah.
But yeah, like we spent a lot of time in the last show was kind of a happy show. It was the last time, Sharks had a pretty good record and not that bad. The last 15 games before these 5 home the Capitals game, including the 4-game road trip, we were 11-4. We only had 4 road games in November, and every team we played was pretty bad or average, minus Winnipeg and Edmonton. And those were the 2 teams that like outclassed us during those times. When we played besides the first time we played Edmonton.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Those are 2 of our losses that it just looked bad. And, we go and play some good East Coast team and we lose every time. 3 out of the last 5 games were just a complete embarrassment, or we're just completely outscored. And like even the games against like bad teams, or I'd say average teams, we have to go to overtime to win. It's not like, we're a dominant team. But yeah, that's like maybe we overhyped November a little bit, and the Sharks, specifically Sharks fans, overhyped November a little bit because our record's really good and we were considered, one of the hottest teams in the NHL at that standpoint. But, maybe it's not that good if we actually take a look at it and like see the teams we were beating, see how many times we were home, and when we played good teams, how bad we lost.
Yeah, it's a bleak picture, honestly. That's kind of being painted.
Okay, sorry about that. We just had to switch over connection problem, so Jeff is not blurry and delayed.
Splooge.
Terrific. So yeah, we were just talking about maybe our November not being as good as we initially thought, but moving on to some brighter things, unless you have something to wrap up on that.
I got nothing else on that.
All right. Our 4th line chemistry seems to have we're finding a stable 4th line, which we addressed a lot as an underratedly large problem. Because not a lot of people think about it. It's the 4th line, but the 4th line, you still want some good depth guys there.
It's like a 1/6 of the game.
Yeah, and good teams have a solid 4th line that's going to play solid defensively and contribute every once in a while. And now that it seems like we're settling on Gregor, Melker, and Gambrell, and I hope that we just put Radil on waivers at this point. It's like they've been consistent. They've been solid defensively, and I've liked their game. One of the problems we mentioned with this whole Barracuda swapping is, you're not finding a lot of chemistry with the 4th line because it's just Melker, Karlsson, and whatever 2 people Deboer felt like bringing up that game. So, Melker's having to play with 2 separate people every single game. So I like the fact that we're kind of landing on some consistency here. And, maybe we can keep that going. Thought, maybe we'll talk about that positive before we get into all the negatives of the game. But, yeah. What are your thoughts on the 4th line?
Melker's been nice. He's been maybe one of the few bright spots in these last couple of weeks, which I almost view as a negative thing because I think he's been like one of our best players. And, all props to Melker, but like he should not be one of our best players. And he's popped up and been great. I also think Gambrell has definitely solidified his spot, earned his spot on the roster. So yeah, the fourth line's taking shape. Noah Gregor, I still got questions about.
That's my guy.
Yeah, no, I know, but I don't. Yeah, like last night, Deboer, we had to send a guy to the box, and they like caught Deboer.
Yeah, it was Gregor every time.
Yeah, he literally just looks down and he sees Gregor's name on the bag. He's like, hey, Noah, go to the penalty box.
You're welcome. Getting you on the score sheet.
Yeah, you're just like, oh, well, somebody's got to do it. So, I mean, and that's not an indictment on Gregor. Like, somebody does have to do it.
Well, that was like Melker last year, like all the time. But
yeah, exactly. And, and Melker's turned out okay. So, I mean, I'm still waiting on Gregor. But, yeah, Melker and Dylan Gambrell. Dylan Gambrell especially, I think, could be filthy if he starts working his way up the lines, playing with better players more consistently.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Let's get into some of the games that we have to discuss. The Sharks were 0-4-1 since our last episode.
Our predictions sucked.
I was the closest, though, right? Yeah.
I have no idea, man. Were you? I don't know.
You said 3-1. I said 2-2.
Oh, yeah. I guess you win.
Thank you. So the Sharks will play the Capitals at home before going on a 4-game road trip. The Sharks lose to the Capitals 2-5. Shots were 28-25 in favor of the Capitals. The Sharks were able to kill 2 penalties and had no power play chances. Jeff, what are your initial thoughts on this game? And, how the Sharks performed coming out against a strong, one of the best teams in the NHL, Capitals.
Yeah, I would say I think they are the best team in the NHL. I'm watching them right now. They're playing the Bruins, and these two teams are both fucking just you can just tell that they're better than the Sharks. Like, I watch the Sharks the most, so that's what that's who I'm comparing it to, and they're clearly just eye test better. So I didn't think that it was a terrible loss coming in from that perspective, where we hadn't lost 5 straight, because the Capitals are so freaking good. But I don't know. It's one of those games. I would have liked to see more out of Joner, but he's playing the fucking Capitals, and they're I don't know.
A great team.
I'd say my biggest analysis on this is just heaps of praise on the Capitals.
Yeah, but in my opinion, this goes back to what we have talked about and harped on this season, is like, when we play good cup contending teams, we don't perform. And it's just like, we came into this game hot. We were a solid team in November.
They traveled across the country too, which is what we. Yeah.
This is in our house. This is benefits us, and we come out flat. Melker Karlsson gets a goal, and then John Carlson just fucks us for the next 2 periods.
We sat back and relaxed.
Yeah, I thought, and it's hard to go back to these games and be like super nitpicky, because that's not what we do. We look for themes and trends that happen with the Sharks. But I thought, Shimmick didn't have a great game. Anytime you see Jones getting pulled, it's just a bad sign for Jones mentally. We've talked about, and we praised Jones for this last episode. We talked about how he is a short-term memory loss goalie, and a goalie that, it doesn't seem like a goal will, really get the best of him. But then, he really looked like this game hurt for him.
And he got pulled.
Yeah. So, and then Kane getting a 5-minute major for elbowing, which I thought was odd. There's a lot of odd penalties in these 5 games with Kane involved, and I was just unhappy with it. I get it. A hit to a head is looked at the NHL to be something, you got to make sure that that's a major. But you have this rule that was just implemented this year where every 5-minute major has to be reviewed, thanks to the Sharks. And they still called that. I thought it's kind of weird to call that 5-minute major after reviewing that, because it didn't look like he even elbowed him. It looked like a shot with his forearm. But yeah, it's to the head. What can you do? That always makes me think of like the call against Arizona on Ekman Larson had on LeBanc, that hit. and like there was no call on it, and it was like totally hit to the head. It looked like the bank died. But it just seems like the NHL watches Kane a little closer, and I'm sure we'll talk more about this, but...
Racism.
Not racist.
110%. They hate
Jesus.
our team because Kaner is an African-Canadian, and I do agree with you though that
Are we getting pulled off the show already?
We're getting well. I mean, this goes to my point. That was a stupid joke, but this goes to my point though that I do think that this season, and again, I don't want to sound like the whiny fan, but we haven't got a lot of calls.
Dude, I don't care. Way. I'll sound like the whiny fan at this point. Like,
okay, we're not getting both reviews and penalties have always gone against us, and Kaner in particular.
Well, Deboer does choose to do the shittiest reviews possible, but he can't do that anymore. There we go.
Yeah, that's one positive.
Yeah.
Thank God. But yeah, I don't know. Those calls and stuff, it doesn't help. But it's hard to complain when the team's playing this shitty. Because if we had gotten those calls, I'm not so sure we'd still be in the same, or that we wouldn't still be in the same position we are in now. So
yeah. Hurdle also, final thing I'm going to say about this game, Hurdle had the lowest time on ice, and, it's something we'll get into more. It's weird that, he goes out for some games with a knee injury and comes back, and I know it's being, very precautious about everything, but I would just like to see him play when he's ready. But that's where we're at, I guess. Jeff, do you have any final thoughts on the Capitals game?
No, nothing else.
All right, that leads us to hitting the road and taking our first away game. The Sharks will lose to Carolina 3-2 in a shootout. Shots were 30-29 in favor of the Sharks. We had a goal from Sorensen and Couture. We were again 0 for 2 on the power play. We had 3 penalties, and yet another game where our PP is useless and our PK is solid. So my initial thoughts on this game is just Burns is a fucking liability. And I hate to say that and this showed up multiple times before, and it shows up later this week. And I hate to say that in a game where I actually thought the Sharks played pretty well in this game, all things considered. I mean, Carolina...
Yeah, it was a good hockey game.
Yeah, Carolina's still a good team, and we battled hard with them. I liked the Thornton line a lot. This game was really fun to watch with all the shit that happened with Mrazek and Joe Thornton, and we'll get into that. But this game was fun to watch, and it just was... It's frustrating to see this defenseman not do well. Like two of the Carolina goals, one, Burns couldn't clear the zone. The second one, Burns just a terrible pinch. And he's like our biggest defensive liability. And another problem that we had this game is we were letting a goal in on the first minute of the period. We've talked about this many times. That's one of the clear signs that the Sharks are not going to win the game. That's one of the clear signs that they are just coming out flat. If they and this is the same for like almost all hockey teams. These are like the most crucial moments when you let in a goal. First minute of the period, really bad time to do it.
That's a look on the head coach too. Why are you coming out of the locker room flat, consistently?
Yeah.
Or what are you saying to them, or what are you not saying, Yeah. So just to kind of shade back to the Deboer theme, I think now we've hit 2 points. The Sharks coming out flat consistently, and the lack of, I don't know, the officials favoring us, which I don't mean that to say as if Deboer had any choice that they're treating us unfairly, but he certainly is supposed to be the voice that speaks out against that kind of shit, and nothing really changed as far as the tides with that. So
yeah. And then also the power play. The power play in this game going 0 for 3 is a problem, and we got to change the formula on it. And a lot of what I wanted to say about the power play was on Deboer, change the fucking formula. But now we don't have them, so hopefully the formulas change. Our power play has been structured the same as it was last year, and I've talked about this, but our power play is just so different without Pavelski. we had like this player who was a tipping god, and our whole power play was structured to get us to the top to Burns, to shoot by Pavelski, to get a good tip. And we're just throwing Kane in there and hoping it works. But another problem I had, like specific with the power play this game, is like one of the unknown things about the power play, I guess it's not unknown, but it's not talked about, is you still have to outwork the teams to get good chances, even on the power play. And it seems like a lot of times we're just getting completely outworked when we're 5-on-4. Like the guys are, relaxing, playing slower because they're relying on the fact that they have an extra guy, which is a problem. And that being said, and I love Thornton, I love Marleau, but having them on the second power play line is not a good recipe because they're not fast enough. They're like, even if they're working hard, there are people that can pick up we aren't fast enough to pick up the slack from like someone like Thornton because he can be outworked and he's a little slower. But yeah,
dude, he's so slow.
And it looks like he fucking aged 40 years between last season and this season. He's ninth straight game with no power play goals. Next, let's go into the Mrazek shit. Holy fuck, this is one of the biggest flops.
What a bitch. Oh my god. He looks like a fucking soccer player out of UEFA just flopping around on the ice. Like, well, and I love Joe's expressions, just like, what the fuck just happened?
After
this is hockey. Like, I threw a punch at you. Like, yeah, Joe deserved a penalty. I was fine with that. But it's like Mrazek just acted like he died. Like, what? Like, are you kidding me? You made goalies look so bad right there. Like, we're all a bunch of. That is not how we are. It's just Peter Mrazek and his Euro ass. So, like, that was just kind of funny to me. And then the next day in practice, I saw the Hurricanes did like a. Did you see they did like an outline of a body?
Yeah.
So I mean, at least the Hurricanes were realizing what a stupid fucking flop it was. But.
Yeah. And like the fact that the trainer doesn't even come on the ice for like 3 minutes. Like the trainer didn't even think he was actually hurt.
Yeah.
Because he took forever to get on the ice to help him. And we just shit on Joe for his speed, but like I love this. It is just so funny to me. I love Angry Joe. And like Joe Thornton is a 50-year-old man. His arms are just going to knock you out when you're wearing a mask. Like,
like you're fucking retarded. And you just fucking swung at him like a lumberjack.
Yeah, and I can totally see Carolina fans being pissed off. Because, like, if this happened to Jones, if someone punched Jones in the face, like, imagine Ryan Reeves punching Jones in the face. I know it's not the same comparison.
Yeah.
But, like, holy fuck, we'd be pissed off as fans.
I'd be heated.
Like, their players didn't even react. Like, Joe punches him in the face, and you would think that someone would drop the gloves. And just like
everyone just kind of stayed.
Everyone's like, "Hey, don't fucking do that."
No, Pete, what the hell, Peter? Why are you still fucking? Are you okay, bud? And then he's like in his little like Czech voice, like, I'm playing it out to make it look good. And you're like, what the fuck are you saying? I don't understand you. I don't speak Slovak. Like, get up.
Yeah. Yeah, I just thought we should definitely talk about that because that was something that, I mean, as a Sharks fan, I was like, this is fucking awesome. I was like, yes.
Yeah, no, I loved it. Yeah.
And just seeing Angry Joe, if you just get swung on and then he just goes over and punches Mrazek in the face and no one does anything about it.
It was so nonchalant too.
Yeah.
Like Joe just kind of like gave him one look and was like, "What's that?" Boom, and it just like popped him, and then he flopped, and then Joe's just thinking in his head like, "Oh my, did I just kill this kid? Like, what's going on right now?" Like, so yeah, I loved it. It was funny, but like that was an entertaining hockey game as a whole.
Yeah, it really made me think like, fuck, man, I wish overtime was 10 minutes because like. It was an entertaining game. It was a super entertaining overtime, and I just wanted to see more of it. And you can harp on the fact is like, oh, why are we putting Erik Karlsson out there on a shootout? He's just gonna he sucks, or He's not a shootout type player. Whatever. Shootouts are fucking coin flips anyway.
Shootouts are fucking
I thought it was funny.
Yeah.
I thought it was funny that Erik Karlsson's. Anytime Burns goes in the shootout, I'm like, that's fucking funny. It's not gonna work, but it's funny. But yeah, I just really wish there was 10 minutes of overtime.
Dell had a beauty of especially in overtime. Dell was nice. So props to Aaron Dell, who's picked up his game in his limited starts.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. All right, moving on to the Sharks versus the Lightning. This is a great one. Sharks lose to the Lightning 1-7. Shots were tied 38. Goal from Vlasic. The Lightning were 2 for 4 on the power play, while the Sharks were 0 for 4. This was the 10th straight game with no power play goals. And yeah, what were your initial thoughts on this? If you have anything to just spill out.
I mean, yeah, I don't even. This game was so disgustingly like it just like was going downhill, and it just went steeper and steeper throughout the game, like just pure ugliness. Like, and you can even look at the box score and you see that the Lightning had 1 goal in the first, 2 in the second, 4 in the third. Like, clearly they're getting tired. They're not giving a whole lot of effort. Like, and again, it could go back to the Deboer thing. Like you said earlier, it seems like he doesn't care. Maybe that's reflecting on the rest of the team. You know, like they're gonna lose their stamina because their head coach isn't showing any. Yeah. So I mean, and you know, credit where credit's due. I think that the Lightning are still a pretty phenomenal team. They're not having as good a season as they have in the past, but I mean, the Lightning were fucking insane the last couple of years, so their standard is pretty fucking high. I also think Vasilevsky is one of, if not the best goalie in the NHL. So, I mean, it's a good hockey team. I think the end result, just the scoreline was so fucking ugly that it's hard to find anything positive out of it. I mean, Vlasic scored, which is good for Vlasic. Like, it's probably his 1 goal of the year. But, you know,
I think he has 4 now. It's more than Karlsson.
Yeah, I'm being sarcastic. He's got 5. But
he's 5.
But like, yeah. But I mean, my point though is like, if that's the one thing we're finding out of this, that Marc-Edouard Vlasic had a goal, like, it was such an ugly game.
Top tier analysis right there.
Thank you.
Yeah, this is just a pathetic display, and you know, harping on the power play again. The Sharks had 4 chances, 0 for 23 in the last 10 games at that point. You know, we had a double power play that we couldn't get it done. I honestly think it's come to the point in the Deboer era that we should have just started declining power plays if that was a possibility. Like, could we ask for that to be a rule maybe for next season? We just decline the power plays because we're honestly worse 5-on-4.
We'll have Kane bring it up to the NHL office. Yeah. They love him there.
But yeah, how frustrating could it be as a player when, and this went back to like what you said about Deboer giving up, when you're on power play 1, let's say it's Kane, and he's like, I really think we need to do this differently. Like, this is a problem. We need to start converting on the power plays. And then, you know, you're reading something about maybe like a write-up from the game last night, and it says like Deboer's comments, or you see a video, Deboer's comments, we don't care. Like, power play is not a problem. We don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Like that kills your motivation as a player. And obviously we don't know what happens behind the scenes, and they're probably, I would hope, working on it. But yeah. And yeah, the Sharks are just desperately missing Pavelski on the power play. He was like the biggest success. And, you know, the Fear the Finn article that I read said the power play had gone 10-game goalless drought twice in franchise history. So that was the second time. And that has happened both times under the Peter Deboer era and both times with the Steve Spot run power play. Both those guys are gone now. Let's see what changes. But yeah, it's good to see that, you know, something's being done about it. Hopefully, you know, Bob Bubner just changes the playbook a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it has to change. There's literally no other option. So
I literally had this whole thing where I want to talk about like holding our coaches accountable and having the players stop blaming it on themselves and start to be like, okay, what the fuck's going on, coaches? But I guess it doesn't matter anymore. Yeah.
Now they got the ultimate accountability fucking down.
Yeah. Oh man. What do you think needs to change for the most part on the power play though? Since should we change the formula? Should we switch up our positioning? Should we change the players out? What's your initial thought when you think about the power play and what you would like to see differently?
I think that the biggest thing is that they, just first of all, straight up need to go back to what they're all individually good at. Burnsy's fucking shot from the point, and I mentioned this in the last episode. That's his best quality, and it doesn't even have to do with his defense. That fucking ringer he can send, and I rarely ever see it make it to the net. His shot gets blocked 90% of the time, it feels like. So if everyone kind of goes back to what they're good at, rather than us trying to replace Joe Pavelski and try to run a power play as if we still have Joe Pavelski, then I think we can start making a difference. But until that happens, I don't see anything changing, and we're just going to stay with the same, bullshit where we're trying to get Kane to clean up the front of the net and get a goal.
Yeah. All right, we've harped on the power play enough there. The only other things about this game is Brent Burns, again, he sucked really bad.
Mm-hmm.
We thought that we had some sort of magic touch. Whenever we call out a player, they generally perform better between next episodes, but not Burns. We have a $30 million blue line, by the way, and we let in 7 goals. And I don't want to be super nitpicky about this, because every team has shit games. Every team has stinkers every once in a while. My problem is that these keep happening against the best teams. And if you look at our close games, they're not against the best teams. They're against average to below average teams. When we play good teams, we tend to just flop, it feels like. I don't know. I can't remember a good game that we lost against a truly solid team, a Stanley Cup contending team. And I'm not going to say Carolina because, regardless of how far they went last year, I don't consider them the very top echelon teams. They're not the Bruins. They're not the Capitals. They're not no, I wouldn't consider that. But yeah, it's just frustrating. And, Jones hasn't really stolen many games for us. Not to say he was helped a lot and should have stolen this game. But, it's been a year and a half of Jones where he's had below a 900 save percentage. And I know you love Jones, and we probably rip on him a little bit too much, and we did praise him last show for getting his 3rd star of the week, but this just gets old after a while. I wanted, not having a goalie that can have above a 900 save percentage is indicative of a lot of things. It's indicative of the defense being a problem. But it's also on the goalie. And
100%, yeah. It's most of it is on him.
Yeah. So yeah, that's kind of all I have to say about the Tampa Bay game. Do you have anything you want to wrap on this one? No?
No, yeah.
Yeah. Then we head over to the other part of Florida. We play the Florida Panthers. The Sharks lose to the Florida Panthers 5-1. Shots were 33-31 in favor of the Panthers. We had a goal from Kevin LeBanc. Sharks get a power play goal for the first time in 10 games. Beautiful. Love to see it. They were 1 for 3. They were 2 for 4 on the kill, so their penalty kill was kind of lacking. I'd still like to give them a pass because their penalty kill has been unbelievably good this year. But yeah, since I started on the Tampa Bay game, let you go on the Panthers game, kind of what your thoughts were on this.
Yeah, it looked like we kind of just carried over from the Tampa Bay game. We literally stumbled from Tampa Bay into the rink in Sunrise and doing a lot of the same shit. Again, the Panthers, not a bad team, so credit where credit's due. I don't think they're bad by any means, and they got Bobrovsky. He's another filthy goaltender. But yeah, again, it's coming out flat, and no one was doing anything. it didn't seem like anyone had any energy, and that I think comes back to the coaching again. The LeBanc goal was nice, and I was feeling positive through the first period that we were still going to come back and win. But once it got into the second period, we were just same shit team, basically, and didn't seem like anything was changing. I thought Patty Marleau actually had a good game, and I thought Patty's been decent, honestly, on this losing streak. I know you've mentioned a couple times some criticism of Patty, but I've really liked how Patrick Marleau's played, and I don't think he's lost too much of a jump.
I think he still has this. Just to test you a little bit, I think he still has a speed, but what does he do? Like he doesn't do enough for me. And it's kind of the same thing that you have. Like you say, like, oh, I don't really have a problem with like Prout, or I don't really like Radil versus blah blah. I don't really care. It's like these are players that to me.
Okay, well, Radil and Prout you can't compare to Patty Marleau. Like I think Patty has made much more of an impact than those two guys.
No, I'm sorry. I'm not trying to compare them to say like 1-to-1. I'm saying like this is another example where I just like feel like I don't really like this out. Like I don't like what they've been doing, and you're like, whatever. But you saying that you like Marleau, I get that, and obviously I love Marleau. I love the fact that he's in teal, stuff like that. I just like maybe I want too much from those guys, but
I feel like maybe my standards are a little lower than yours are for Marleau, or maybe I'm just seeing something different than you are. But I have not been upset with Patty at all. There's been a lot more areas on the Sharks that I'm much more critical of and would like to see more out of than Patty Marleau. I think he's as far as his role goes, he's done fine.
Imagine if he still had the same contract and was playing in Toronto with the amount of points he has this year. Holy fuck, they would be calling for his head. Yeah.
Yeah. I talked to a Leafs fan like last weekend, and he was like, mocking me, like, oh, you guys having fun with Patty Marleau? And I just looked at him and I was like, yeah, we are.
Fuck you.
he was like, oh, okay. I was like, yeah, shut the fuck up. Yeah, Leafs fans are garbage. But yeah, Patty Marleau's been fine. He doesn't play a lot, so it's not like he's getting endless opportunities to be putting the puck in the back of the net. I've been fine with him. This game sucked almost more than the Lightning game, if not more. Kaner had a solid 17 penalty minutes, which was great.
Yeah. I hate it. Yeah. It sucks. He takes, I hated that game because he takes another problem. Like he just gets in these situations where it never goes his way when it comes to officiating.
Yep.
It's another problem where he takes a hit to the head and there's no call. And I just feel for Kaner. I feel like since he's known as someone who's been thrown out before, he gets kicked out a lot earlier and doesn't get calls for himself. But it's just like I don't know. He goes out like an idiot sometimes. Afterwards, in the post of this game, he basically said, like, I'm going to stand up for myself if the refs aren't taking into account player safety. Like, okay. It's just like, I get that.
To a certain extent, you can get away with that answer, yeah.
Yeah, no, like, it's just, Kaner's always been known for, like, his grit, but he can be such a retaliatory player at times, and I wish that, he recognized the fact that, like, he's our leading goal scorer, and he's been on a drought for a while. Like, I don't want him to lose his grit, but I want him to stop retaliating, put his kind of tough guy ego to the side a little bit more, and not feel like he needs to be the person to stand up. Like, let Gambrell do it. Let fucking Brendan Dillon do it. Let Barclay Goodrow do it. I don't know. But just, put your ego aside for a little and recognize that nobody needs you to be out of the game. Nobody, the Sharks can't afford you to be out of the game.
We need you to be in the game. Like, we need the option.
Yeah. We cannot afford you to be out of the game for 17 minutes. But
he's leading the league in penalty minutes, too. 75 penalty minutes. He's got 5 more than, I think it's Brendan Lemieux, or I just had it. But, yeah, he's got 75 penalty minutes, so that's great.
Yeah, a lot of time on the bike for him in the locker room.
Yeah, he loves that fucking bike.
Yeah. Yeah, whatever. The game was a bummer. so whatever about these games. It just doesn't seem like, regardless, you can kind of look at it and be like, oh, this guy had a decent game, but in reality,
there's
no one plays well.
way. Yeah.
No one plays well in these games. But all right, does that bring us to the Predators game? What do you think?
Yep.
All right, the Sharks will end their road trip going to the Predators in a 3-1 loss. The shots were 32-25 in favor of the Predators. Interesting note is that all 3 periods, the Sharks didn't get a shot on net until 7 minutes in. That was the earliest they got a shot on net. We had a goal from Timo Meier, another game where we only could put 1 in the net. Sharks were 0-4 on the power play, and they allowed 1 for 7 on the kill.
7 fucking penalties.
There's so many penalties. The penalties were insane, too. We had the 22nd power play, which is us, up against their 27th PK. We still couldn't put together 1 goal in the 4 power plays that we had, so that's a bummer. Going into it, the Sharks, it's a bummer they lose this one, too. The guys need to put the puck in the net, but Sorensen and Dillon, had a pretty solid first period. They both saved us from getting scored on. Burns didn't look completely useless, so there were some positives. Sharks, overall, from a defensive standpoint, I thought looked better. And, yeah, I mean, it's frustrating to see. And I say that way too much. I need to stop saying that. But the Sharks keep frustrating me, and these games have nothing going for them, I feel like.
Frustrating is the word I would use.
This whole season is frustrating to see. But yeah, I thought, it's a stinger to lose this one because this was actually a good game. I like how the game.
The Preds too. We've developed a nice, not necessarily rivalry, but a primetime. Sharks Preds is a good game.
Yeah, it's been fun to watch, and what's funny is it was actually pretty tame up until the end of the second period, and then everyone fucking hated each other.
Yep.
I heard you had some insight on what was being said right before the game got out of hand.
They caught the refs on the mic. I guess you must have missed it, but they caught the refs on the mic right as they're coming off for a penalty. He's like, right on the broadcast, clear as day. 3 fucking times. 3 fucking times I've told you now. 3 fucking times. And then it just they realize they cut it and they go back to Bakes and Honor and they're just quiet for a sec and Bakes just goes, You think he cross-checked him 3 times?
Dude, Bakes
I was actually, dude, I love that.
Bakes was actually so funny that game. There was another time
yes.
when who got cross? I think it was Goodrow got cross-checked in the back and then fell on the puck and had a conceal.
Oh yeah, he got the
penalty.
concealing the puck stupid penalty.
Fuck that. But Bakes would just was like, "Can we talk to the ref?" And he started pretending he was on the radio and he's like, I'd like to, say that last penalty should not have been called. And it was just in the middle of the broadcast, something like that. And I was just like, what the fuck? Randy's just sitting there.
Is a bright spot.
Yeah, absolutely. He's the team MVP in my opinion.
Yeah, he's grown his way into my heart. Because I like Drew Remenda, so I was against him when he came in, but I like him.
Yeah. Yeah, the Kane penalty, another game where he's taking 17 minutes, something absurd like that, which I thought is just bullshit, and I'll pin myself as the fan that's gonna complain about the refs.
No, but you know what it is? It is I just looked it up too. We're leading the league in penalty minutes by 30 minutes, team wise.
Thank you, Kane.
Obviously, yeah. The thing is, obviously that isn't all just bad calls, and I do think we take way too many penalties.
Yeah,
and that again goes back to Deboer, but that doesn't mean that we're not getting completely screwed on a lot of other stuff, especially reviews. Things that have gone to review have specifically been brutally, opposite of what, your eyes would tell you looking at a play.
Yeah.
So I think it's unfortunate because we now are gaining this reputation this season of being this reckless and undisciplined team, which we kind of deserve, but it's causing us to a 50-50 call or apparently a 25-75 call are now going against us. So
yeah, and I'm tired of it because it's we've already broken down the Vegas penalty and the shit that happened in the overtime that year. We've talked about how like it's not our fault. Stop penalizing us because the ref missed a fucking offsides or some shit in the Avs game in that series. It's not our fault that they called a 5-minute major. It's not our. It's kind of Kane's fault that he punched a ref. Whatever. Yeah. After the ref tackled him, but whatever. Like, why are we the ones that are constantly paying for this? And it's really frustrating. Again, I said that word. But yeah, Kane gets like all these calls, like 10-minute misconduct when you have Watson coming in. This is a third guy in when he's like battling in front of the net just to fight him. And Kane's the one getting thrown out of the games. And
yeah,
I don't know. And I'm just, like I said, I would like Brendan Dillon to just step up for him because I'm tired of seeing Kane out of the games. I want Brendan Dillon to just like take a load off. Like, no one helps Kane, and it just sucks.
Kane almost doesn't let him, though. Kane, like, just so bullheaded. He'll do whatever the fuck he wants, and to a bad extent.
I know, but he's getting paid $7 million. Then he needs to be talked to because he's getting paid $7 million. He's not getting paid $7 million to sit out the last 2 games in the third period.
Yep. Apparently Deboer wasn't doing that, and I don't feel confident that Bugner will, but we'll see.
Yeah, well, Bugner was he was a goon, so maybe he'll tell him to fight more. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
And then thank God, another problem of Deboer's doing that we don't have to deal with anymore is a terrible challenge. It's got to be like his 5th shit challenge, and like, dude needs to stop fucking challenging calls when.
And then we get a penalty.
You have video review, yeah.
Yep.
And it's so annoying because he says like. After the game, he talks about how we need to be more disciplined. Well, don't fucking help out the other team by giving them another power play. Like, he's like, oh, yeah, we just take too many penalties this game. Well, you're one of the faults of that.
One of those was you, buddy. Like,
you specifically challenged a goal that you have an iPad right in front of you. You can check to see if it's a goal. By the way, you don't have to be like, that looks like it's not a goal. I don't know. You have an iPad. You can slow it down. You can look at a camera. Like, just do your research before you just, want to challenge something and get us another PK. I get that we have a good PK and you're like, I'll take the risk, but just don't. And now you don't have the opportunity. So, yeah. I don't know. My last things to say about this game was I just kind of felt for Joner because I thought, regardless of 3, one of them was an empty netter, but, the 2 goals that were let in on, they weren't his fault. I thought he played one of the best games of the season, and it definitely, brings a sour taste in your mouth because he's wildly inconsistent, and it's unfortunate to see us lose when, he decides to perform well. But, it's a tough loss. Defense was solid, too, and I'm not super mad about the loss, and just definitely some more common problems, and hopefully
I was just by this point I was resigned to the fact that we were like it was the 5th straight, and it's just
all right, that's gonna wrap it for the games of the week that we need to catch up on. We're gonna talk about some fun stats. I guess fun stat because I only pulled one. The Sharks in a third of the games have given up a goal in the first 5 minutes. That record is abysmal, too. They have won, I think, 3 of the games that they've given up the first goal in the 5 minutes, too. So another thing that we talked about, you got to come out ready to go. And this team had a lack. I mean, they didn't come out ready to go at the start of the season, so they had to make up for it all November. And they don't come out ready to go in these games, and it's just so. I'm happy to see it.
Deboer.
Yeah, Deboer. So you're saying symptom? So we've been plagued by Deboer.
Well, I mean, I'm just trying to add. I'm adding up in my head the issues that would point to the coach, and there's a lot of things that do point to coaching problems.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Some of the more recent topics. Sharks have, been unable to score more than 2 goals in the last couple games. One of the problems I feel like this is, and our team is just so heavily reliant on streaky players, and when they're off and can't get goals, we're consistently just not showing up. And the fact that we don't even have a solid defense, we don't have a solid defensive effort, like we're not going to be able to win games 1-0. And, we rely on players like Meyer, Hurdle, Kane, and LeBanc. Those are like some of our big offensive guys. I'm not going to throw Couture in there because I think he's not really that streaky. I think he's pretty solid. But these are the players we rely on. And, those are all streaky players. Those have all been streaky players. Hurdle has been consistently, up there in points, but he's streaky in the sense that, he plays 50 out of 82 games every season, it feels like. But yeah, that's kind of where we sit right now. And, we have two players that should always be in the Norris conversation, and we can't put together some consistent offense.
Or defense, for that matter.
Yeah, but I'm just focusing on the offense right now because, that's another problem in and of itself. But
yeah,
frustrating. God damn it. I need to stop saying that.
No, I mean, well, it's the word of the fucking day.
Yeah. And, we still have good pieces, and it's not like to say, we're not a good team. It's just the fact that these players are streaky and they're the ones that we rely on the most. So when they're not hot, we're not scoring. When Kane's not, Kane always goes on these runs where he has like a goal for like 5 games in a row and then he's quiet. And the same thing happens to Meyer, and the same things happen to LeBanc. And when they're all quiet, the Sharks look bad and they look like they can't score and they can't produce anything offensively. But yeah.
Yep.
Another thing is Hurdle. This is another thing I want to talk about in regards to Peter Deboer. It's kind of, definitely going to be mixed up a little bit, but he's clearly not 100%. He keeps getting pulled out of the games for precautionary reasons. Worries me a lot that we're playing these guys. It really does, because these are guys that, are key pieces, and if we are 25, 30, 35, 40, whatever games into the season, we don't need to be playing these guys. Like, we have time. We have time to let these guys rest and play them before they're 100%. And it just reminds me of when Carlson had a groin injury and they sent him out again, and then he just got completely fucked and he had to miss a ton and had to get groin surgery and didn't come back in the playoffs all 100% either. And this isn't the playoffs. We don't need to play Hurdle right now. If he needs to rest up, I don't like the fact that, it just looks like something's off, because if he's not 100%, then he's at risk to hurt himself even more. And he is one of the most valuable assets on our team. He's literally the engine of the San Jose Sharks, I feel like. And he's one of the hardest workers and gets the guys going. So, they need a rest if we even want to do well in the playoffs, let alone even get there. I don't think he's the key that needs to be there at 65-70% to get to the playoffs. But
he needs to be, I don't know, he needs to be better than he has been. So, I mean,
yeah. And I don't know if it's Deboer, obviously I feel like if you're the coach of the team, you got to come in there and say hey, make sure you're not playing if you don't feel good. And if you're not doing that, that's part of your job, then, I'm glad to see you're gone, because these guys need a rest. These guys need to be 100%. And I don't like to see that, they're not getting played, or they're trying to play when they're not 100%.
Yeah, well, and again, that's now that Deboer's gone, there might be a change in the philosophy there.
I literally had something that I wanted to talk about security of Steve Spotts.
I saw that.
and Johan Hedberg, but yeah, we already know the tale of that. I don't know. You want to talk about Burns a little bit? We kind of ripped him last show, but we don't have to spend too much time on it.
I think he's just kind of getting exposed. I mean, Burnsy's never been the best defensive defenseman, and I think everyone knew that. But now that everyone else on the team is playing just as shitty defense as he is, now it's okay, it's getting pretty evident how many gaping holes are left open when he's out there.
Gaping holes.
Yeah.
Nice.
All right, that's not appropriate. But yeah, he's been shit, and he's not doing enough, in my opinion, offensively for me to overlook his bullshit on defense.
Absolutely.
And so I don't know. There's nothing. It's not like I don't want his ice time taken down or anything like that. It's all on Bernsey to fucking just go back to the guy that he is and start making plays.
Yeah. The thing I would contest you on though is like Burns has not always been known for being a shit defenseman. Like in the playoffs last year, he was a beast. He was a solid defenseman. He's made some great defensive plays this year.
I didn't say shit. I just meant that's not what he's known for.
Yeah. Well, when you're a Norris Trophy winner, you're never known for your defensive efforts for the most part.
Unless you're did Giordano win it last year? Or was it?
Yeah.
Yeah. He was a good defensive. Or he
okay, well, you're kind of trying to ruin my point here, and I don't like that. So can you just
keep that
to a minute? I'm just kidding. But yeah, Burns still the worst plus minus in the NHL. And think about all the shitty teams in the league, like Detroit. He's a minus 20. You can't just throw him with Dylan. You can't just mix it up even more than you already are.
Yeah,
he's a liability on the ice. Like, do we? And here we got a new coach. Do we throw him on forward? I'm just gonna lay it out there. Do we?
Well, who the hell are we gonna put that on? I no.
Well, now that Shimmick's out, then definitely not.
Yeah,
it's kind of fucking.
We don't even have enough people to play actual defense, so I don't think we can afford to lose one of our actual defensemen.
Okay, well, if Shimmick comes back and Burns is still doing bad, I would say just. I get it, like, the immediate reaction is like, fuck no, we're not that desperate of a team, but, like, maybe for Burns' sake, for a guy who, like, hasn't gotten it together all season defensively, like, maybe this is what he needs, is to just play some offense and just see the game from a different light. But, yeah, I don't know.
I mean, that's kind of that's kind of just a perspective of, fuck it, like we're doing so bad, why not do something weird? I don't know.
Yeah. All right. So that's going to bring us to the games of this week, unless you want to go over like Jones at all. I think we kind of already touched on that, the fact that, we keep shitting on him.
We've hit Jones enough every week, I feel
every week. There's only 7 games this season where he's above a 910 save percentage, and yeah, whatever. I don't want to spend too much time on him. The only thing I do want to bring up is we just saw Doug Wilson, and this will wrap back around to the fact that Peter Deboer is gone and his team is gone. We just saw Doug Wilson make a big move and kick PDB. Do you think he's going to make a big move? We're about halfway in the season. You look at our assets. Brendan Dillon's our highest marketable asset and our most valuable piece. I don't know, like the way the Sharks are playing and the way Doug Wilson runs his team and wants to always compete, it's looking like he might be gone.
I think Doug's going to sit with the new coach for a while and just see how that goes. And then, if things continue like this, then yeah, he'll make them.
Yeah. All right, that's going to bring us to the games of this week coming up. First off, just talking about the fact that we have kind of a tough schedule coming up. The Sharks looking bad in the last 5 games. They need to figure out a way to win and start soon, because with the way they've let some of these games go, it's been shitty for us as a team. Like, fucking Minnesota's higher than us in points, shockingly. So these little mistakes keep adding up. We need to find a way to contain it. But we got a 7-game homestand coming up, and we need to take care of it. The Pacific Division rivals are catching up because we have failed to pick up on points this road trip. So every game matters. We're going to start with the first game we have tomorrow, Thursday night, against the New York Rangers. I'm going to defer to my New York Rangers expert because he's been to like 2 games. Jeff, Rangers are 15-12-3. What are kind of your thoughts coming into this game?
Well, the Rangers are not a bad team by any. They were terrible at the beginning of the season, I thought, because like when we went and saw them play the Canucks, I think it was, I watched it with Hugo and Connor, and even they could tell how just god awful hockey was being played. But I mean, the Rangers have picked it back up. They're a good hockey team. I don't know about traveling across the country how they're going to be, but also the Caps just flew across country and beat us. So
Caps are an anomaly. I feel like.
Yeah, no, Caps are really good. But I don't know. I'm more concerned about the Rangers than I thought it would be.
Yeah, it's time to be concerned about every single person. I feel like.
Yeah.
Next we have the Canucks coming in. They're 15-12-4. Elias Pettersson not slowing down at all.
No, good lord.
Yeah. I don't know, Jeff, what are your thoughts on the Canucks playing us here?
I watched the Canucks last night, I think it was, and they looked pretty. Elias Pettersson is he seems like he's given 100% effort too, like all the time. So their team, I think, is very similar to the Rangers too. Haven't been a team that's been doing well the last couple of years, but now this season, maybe the pieces are coming together. And I don't know. I think both the games kind of signal, and even the game after this against, I think we're playing the Coyotes after this one. It's 3 games where it's kind of a changing of the guard. 3 teams that have not been good in recent memory, and the Sharks who have been good in recent memory. And we're heading downhill, they're heading up. So
yeah,
I think that it literally could be a 3-game stretch of franchises being flipped, kind of. Our fans continuing to realize how shit our team is, and a lot of hope being inspired in Vancouver, New York, and Phoenix.
Yeah. I don't know, and this will spark a whole nother discussion that we can get into later. It comes down to and we talk of there's always a team every single year, pretender versus contender. The Canucks, Arizona, they're having a good start. Are they going to be able to maintain it? We'll see. It's primarily a young team. They're not slowing down as of yet, so definitely still a hard game. That leads us to Arizona, another team. This team 18-11-4 throughout the season. Another team that is going to be a challenge, and like I said, these are all hard games that are coming up. Arizona, and then we have St. Louis right after us, or right after that.
Jeez.
They're 18-8-6. This isn't easy.
No.
So, the only thing I could say, I'd skip the predictions this time.
Yeah, that didn't go well.
It's just a guess. Any team can beat any team in this league, but the Sharks just need to be ready to go. And the thing I'm most looking forward to is how they play against St. Louis. Obviously, I want them to come out hard in all these games, but we've seen them play against the Canucks. It wasn't great. We saw them play against Arizona. It was a good game. I like that game out of them, but I want to see how they go up against St. Louis, the team that kicked them out of the Cup last year. One of the strongest teams in the NHL right now. I want to see how they go. Yeah. What about you? Anything else on the week coming up?
I think the biggest theme of it is changing of the guard. It's going to be a good chance for the Sharks to shut people like me up who are saying these teams are coming up and taking the spots of teams like the Sharks and the Blackhawks, who I guess have already gone full nosedive. But it's we say this every week. I feel like we're being redundant, but it is a big stretch of games here, and the message is kind of the Sharks. We're still here. For the Sharks to be like, hey, we're still a competitor. We're still competing, and the Canucks, the Rangers, the Coyotes, they should know their place, and it's below us. I think it is a big chance for us to make a statement. Are we going to make a statement? I don't feel confident that we will. But, coaching change, Bob Bugner, maybe he's a stallion. I don't know.
One can only hope. His track record doesn't say that.
A lot of negativity. But I don't know.
Yeah. All right, to wrap up this fully positive episode of Happy Thoughts about the Sharks, let's look at the bright side a little bit. Just one stat that I want to bring up, kind of the last point to talk about this episode, is that the team was actually 500, 40 games into the season, the year that they made their run to the Cup. This team has problems. We have identified it. Mm-hmm. Regardless, they are a veteran team. They can turn it around. We have proven talent on our team. We've talked about it from the beginning. The Sharks' goal during the regular season is to just make playoffs. They go from there. They don't care what their seeding is, first, second, third. They have shown and talked about multiple times they don't care where they're seated. They just, want to make playoffs, and that's their goal every single year. So all hope is not lost, although this is...
Especially in the NHL.
Although this is a desperate move to change your coach right now, all hope is not lost.
Hey, the Blues did it last year, and it worked, so...
Yeah. Let's see how it goes.
Never know. Yeah.
All right, anything you want to say to wrap up the show?
No, just, the same thing every episode. Fuck the Sharks Instagram. I bought Shell. Paid $60 for it, so... You scumbags over at Sharks Instagram, you owe me $60. That's all I got to say.
Do you want to, say where they can pay you at?
No.
Should they just Venmo you? Yeah, just Venmo you?
Yeah. No, you can mail a check to my parents' home. I'll give the address in a DM.
Yeah, they'll totally respond to that one, just like your other 100.
Yeah, for sure. Eventually, once the show's as big as Spit and Chicklets, they'll be begging me.
All right, with that being said, we're going to wrap this show up. Thank you, everyone, for listening. If you made it this far, please check us out on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, whatever. We're on a bunch of these things. Those are just always the two that actually pop to my mind. If you are listening to us there, check us out on YouTube. That's basically the best way I can see the metrics of our show. So, if you like it, go there, give us a watch our whatever. Just do what you do on YouTube.
Don't jerk off to us. Well, if you want to, whatever. If that's what you're into and it'll get us views, that's fine.
All right, I'm done with the show. We're gonna have a lot to talk about next week with, the games after the brand new coach. But as always, Jeff, thanks for joining me to talk about the Sharks, and hopefully we got something more positive to talk about next week.
Yeah, seriously, let's go, Bob Bugner. I'm all Bugner.
We're all in on Boogs. All right, see you,
all right, buddy.